Mm. Hey, Shalom. First, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful lake, the house of David. Let's get into this. I'm going to title this lesson, I don't like it, but it is needed. You know, I'm saying because I'm coming from a personal standpoint. But I know that there are others that don't like it either, but know it's needed. And what is this I'm talking about? I'm talking about the suffering. I'm talking about the struggle. You know? I'm talking about that fire, that furnace, you know? Who likes pain? You have some people who likes pain, but how to say this? You got some people that like pain, but most people don't. But there's a line, there's a difference even with that. Because you have people who don't like pain, but know that it is beneficial in a way. Know that it is beneficial in a way, like working out. There's some struggle to that. There's some pain to that, But what's the results? You get stronger. But what happens? The muscle tears. The muscle tears. But what it rebuilds, and when it rebuilds, it rebuilds stronger, so it won't rip. The next time when that weight is applied, because there's some people that don't like there's some people that work out. There's some people that work out. Like, I've been watching people that work out. They're in good shape. But I was surprised, and I felt, I don't know. I think it would just be, I felt comforted that, there's some people that work out in great shape, but they say they don't like it, They don't like it, They like getting the results, but they don't like the process, They like the results, but they don't like the process. But because they like the results, they are willing to go through the process. Because, you have people, these red pill dudes and stuff like that, be like, oh, you got to fall in love with the process, and all that, Not everybody the same, Not everybody the same, You, you be like, man, maybe I'm going off, maybe something wrong with me, but nah, Lord will show you something, Lord will give you something, like some different next, like, nah, not everybody's like that. People have different reasons. Some people fall in love with the process, and enjoy the results. Some people just like the results and is willing to go through the process just to get those results, Now, it's coming from a more carnal aspect of things, because I want to give that example before I got into the spiritual part, because we go through this process, this struggle, this fire, this the unpleasant parts, so what we may be made stronger, be made stronger. Like, I know people like, how is this making me stronger, how is this making me stronger? I don't see the reason. I don't see the I don't see the benefits. Yeah, some people like that. 'Cause sometimes in the beginning, them thoughts come through your mind, but you be like, what was the results? What are the benefits? And the results is a spiritual, a mental thing. A spiritual and mental thing. Going through the struggle, going through the furnace is a spiritual and mental, it's a spiritual and mental benefit. Because sometimes you'll be like, man, I went through all this and I wasn't rewarded. I'm going through all this and I'm not rewarded. You're looking for an actual reward for your struggle. You're looking for an actual, some kind of tangible, reward for all the things you're going through, because it'll make sense of the pain. It'll make sense of the struggle, because you think you'll think things in a way of payment, You go to work. The only reason a lot of us is still working, because one, we have to. But even like some of us who don't have to, you working to you going to work, you going to work, you don't like working, but you're working for what? That paycheck. There's a lot of people that gets up and go to a place that they hate, that they despise, only because they want to receive that paycheck, Only because they want to receive that paycheck. There's some people that they hate their job. Yeah, I hate my job. You have plenty of people that hate their job. But what they do, they get that paycheck. There's some people I know. I'm sure that you all know some people that don't need to work, but work because they want to receive that paycheck. They'll go to a place that they hate, despise, As soon they walk through the door, they want to leave, but endure it for that paycheck. And we like some of us apply that to the spirit, and sometimes I won't say a lot of times, not sometimes, a lot of times it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. The benefits is in the spirit and the mind. Now, granted, you will be rewarded when Yahweh Shai comes, when Yahweh Shai returns. But seeing that reward, in this life, in Esau's kingdom. Well, I'm saying in this life, yeah, Esau's kingdom as well. In my experience, 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna see it. You're not gonna get that reward, that physical, that tangible reward. The benefits will be mostly spiritual and mental. Spiritual and mental. Listen to this, because I've been yapping. Let me get one time back. This is Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 2. Listen. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy power led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, and to know what was in thy heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. You see, that 40 years in the wilderness was suffering, But what? It revealed a lot of things. You know, and we're gonna get into a couple of them, but it revealed a lot of things. See, when they left Egypt, when Yahweh Shema Shai, led them out of Egypt, what? They can because of the sufferings they was going through in that wilderness, what? They complained. They try to replicate what they was doing in Egypt. They rebelled. Yahweh Shema Shai revealed what was in their mind. You see, he led them out of Egypt. But that suffering that they went through in that wilderness, it revealed imperfection. It revealed that imperfection. It revealed that, you let us out, but we don't like it. We don't like it. We was comfortable, We was comfortable. And because they was uncomforted, they try to replicate that comfort in Egypt. They try to get back to it. So they started doing things they saw in Egypt. They missed the things of Egypt. They started blaming Moses. They started blaming Moses. They're like, dang, it was better there than out here, because what? In Egypt, they had it good. They had it good. I ain't gonna say they had it good as slaves, but they saw that it was better underneath someone than on their own, because what? They was talking about the food. They was talking about how Egypt had this, Egypt had that. It wasn't until Moses popped up. It wasn't until Moses came when things got all rough on them, So that it revealed that what? It revealed that they didn't want to serve Yahweh Shema Shai. They want to serve their what? Their comfort. If they could, they would have chosen Pharaoh over Yahweh Shema Shai. See, Yahweh Shema Shai came to lead them out of Egypt. He didn't give them no choice. He didn't give them no choice. You probably saying, wow, what you talking about? Ain't giving no choice. Lord said, hey, you paint the blood of your door stamp, it's out of way. If you do it, if you don't do it, the death angel gonna come into your house and take your sons. But if you do, he won't. That's not a choice. That's not a choice. What they say nowadays, you made that under duress. You made that choice under duress. You made that choice under duress. That's like saying, hey, Halak, come with me, I'm going to kill you. Now, if you're someone who, values your life, if you value your life, you're not, you're afraid of dying, you're going to be like, I don't want to die, so let me come with you, And Yahweh Shema Shai know that. He knows that. So he led the people out of Egypt, but he knew that many of them only chose him because they wanted to live. They didn't choose him because they wanted to serve him. They chose him because they want to live. You know? And if they had a choice, they would have chosen Pharaoh over Yahweh Shema Shai. Why? Because they was comforted. They didn't understand what was for their actually good. You know, they didn't understand what was for their actually good. You know, that Yahweh Shema Shai was going to set them up. But they had to go through this wilderness, you know, to get there. They had to go through that suffering to get their reward, to get that setup. But because they didn't like the suffering, they said, hey, damn, it was better in Egypt than here. You know? You know, and that revealed the minds of the people. They revealed that what these people's heart, their minds wasn't with Yahweh Shema Shai. You know? Because they ain't know him. They ain't know him. Moses had to give them all his name. Moses had to give them his name, you know? They ain't know him. They were like, man, you know? And that revealed, they were like, man, first we don't know him. We know of him. But if they could have they would have chose Pharaoh. Because what? They was confident. They didn't want to go through the wilderness. They didn't want to go through that suffering, that process to get the reward, you know, because he told them what was all going to be, where they were going to land and get, you know, the land of milk and honey, you know. He told them where they were going, but what, they didn't want to go through the process to get there, you know. Now I'm going to move on because I think I repeated myself 2 or 3 times. You know, I really don't like that. Let's get this. I want to move on. And also, I think that made this video a bit longer than I wanted. This is Ecclesiasticus 2, verse 1 and 2. Listen, my son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. Set thy heart aright, thy mind, and constantly endure, and make not haste in a time of trouble. You hear that? And make not haste in a time of trouble. You know, you got to prepare your mind for temptation because you're going to go through it. What? You're going to go through that process, them temptations, what? That suffering, what? To reveal what's in you. You know, to reveal what's in you, like that ore. That way it's called, spiritually called the furnace of fire, because it's going to melt away those other properties, those other metals, to what? Reveal that gold. To get that gold. You know, it's going to reveal your mind. You're going to go through something. Something's going to manifest. You know, you're going to have a reaction. And once you come out of that fire, you're going to what? You're going to be dumped in that water. You know, you're going to have some time, I want to say that the fire going to be less. You know, that you're going to come out that heat. And while you're in that water, you have time to think. Okay, you be like, man, okay, I did, you know, I wish I would have reacted better in this area. I wish I would have, you know, once you go through something, you be like, man, I wish I would have did this better. I wish I would have moved like this. Okay, I did that. I'm proud of myself for doing that, but I wish I would have did, you know, blase. What? That's that's a refining process. You're seeing the part you're learning. See, that's that benefits, that mental and spiritual benefit. You know. Cause what, it made you a bit more wiser. Becoming wiser is learning how to do better. Becoming wiser is becoming more knowledgeable and learning how to do better. Because once you say, I wish I would have did it this way, in a better way, you became a bit more wiser in the mind and spirit. Let's listen to this. There's a Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3, starting at verse 5. Listen. And having been a little chastened, they shall be greatly rewarded. For Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai proved them and found them worthy for himself, as gold is in the furnace have he tried them, and received them as a burnt offering. You're acceptable. He's willing to take you in. Once them impurities are all off you, once you become more wiser, more refined, he'll take you in. He'll be like, all right, that's enough. Let me get that. I like it that way. Let me get that. And we're about to go through something even more crucial. Like everything we're going through right now, it's preparing us for Jacob's trouble. Everything we're going through right now is preparing us for Jacob's trouble. So once we're in it, what? We're familiar with the furnace. We're familiar with the struggle. We're familiar with being uncomfortable. Not only that, we know the reward. We know the reward. We know the hereafter. And that's gonna allow you to get through the process. Like that example I brought up earlier about the workout. People who hate the process but love the reward, you're gonna know what the reward is. But also you're familiar with the process, because these people who have not been afflicted, who have not put themselves in uncomfortable circumstances, are unfamiliar with the process, but also don't know what the reward is. See, if you don't understand, if you don't know or understand or believe that there is a reward after this, what's gonna happen? You're gonna try to turn back to Egypt. You're gonna turn back to Egypt. And what, you're going to get destroyed. You're going to get destroyed. I don't even type this in. Wait. Let me get this. This is Isaiah chapter 30, verse 7. Wait, is it? No, Isaiah chapter 31, verse 1. Listen. Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help, and stay on horses, and trust in chariots because they are many, and horsemen, because they are very strong, but they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. You know? Because they don't believe or know what the reward is, for the process, for this struggle that they're about to go through. They're going to turn to Egypt. As soon as something that gives them relief appears, they're going to go straight for it. And that relief is going to come in the form of that charagma, that MOTB. And they're going to quickly get it to, to relieve themselves, not knowing that they're going to be destroyed, not knowing that is not the end of the process. The end of the process comes with Yahweh Shai when he returns. So you might hate it, you might not hate it, you might not like it, but it is needed. You might not like it, but it is needed. Because what? Wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times and strength of salvation. So with that, I hope you was edified. Again, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone, peace and blessings to the whole elect, the house of David. Until next time, Yahweh willing, Shalom.